Hi everyone, my name is Eric and I'm the developer of an upcoming action platforming game called GDoCExpo, which is a game about fighting your bosses and also for a better world. I kind of messed up the elevator pitch there, but it's okay, I think. You can wishlist this game on Steam and I would very much appreciate it if you would do that because, you know, then you would get notified when it's out and then you can buy it for money and give it to me, which would be very great. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about what I did last week and what I plan on doing this upcoming week. And there was kind of a lot of stuff actually that I did, considering that I only really started work on Wednesday, which led to some interesting things. So anyway, let's start and go along. Oh yeah, okay, cool. Okay, now the thing works. Yeah, awesome. For some reason it was hanging for a moment. Anyway, we just move on and keep this train wreck going. So what did I plan last week? After I took a 2-day break because I was kind of exhausted and kind of was overdoing things. So what I planned was I wanted to make more stages for the endless attack mode. I wanted to make a new title screen and also rework the crack throw menu a tiny bit to see if I can fit a few more options in there. Just to go forward, this is what I actually did. I did make a new title screen. I did make a better crack throw. I did add a pointless life system option to set crack throw for people who would like to play GDoCExpo with a life system, meaning that you can theoretically go game over. It's not as harsh as I intended it to be. I'll talk about it in a moment. I did add a bunch of endless attack stages as well. And I also improved GDoCExpo's game feel. I do not like this word. Maybe I should really just call it rumble, because that's what I think what I want my games to feel like, that they rumble. There are different terms that are being used for that kind of stuff, game feel. Sometimes you hear the the worst descriptor for this kind of stuff is juice, which I find incredibly blech. I don't want my game to feel juicy. Again, I want my games to rumble. So I improved the game's rumble feeling. Let's just call it this, this, or like that. Apologies if I'm a bit distracted. I do need to this is incredibly yeah, okay, I can find it this way. This is very, 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 very unorganized right now. Okay, good, because I had to look up a video. So okay, because this is something I want to talk about in a moment when I start talking about game feel or rumble. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about the pointless life system and what I had in mind with that, because I was kind of starting and then stopping. So GDoCExpo doesn't have lives, because I don't see a point in letting you go game over, and it also kind of, in my eyes, goes against the thing I want to create of GDoCExpo feeling like you're playing a force of nature, and a force of nature doesn't go game over, it just keeps going. So a life system doesn't make much sense. But since I want to be nice to people who maybe want to play it this way, I thought, and again, I reworked the crack throw menu as well as the main menu in a little bit, that I have a bit more space to use, that it's not just a big box of text, but more text lines that are scrolled through, which is much more space efficient and looks a bit nicer. And that way I was able to add more options to the crack throw, as well as the potential to add even more options to that if I can think of some. which is great. And yeah, like I thought, okay, why not add a life system to it for people who would like to use it? And like again, the default option is infinite lives, but if you want, you can play it with lives from like 0, so like you die once and you go game over up to 9 lives. And initially I wanted to build it in such a way that when you go game over, the game completely restarts and deletes your save file. So you have to get through with the lives that you set yourself. Also, there are no extra lives in this game. I'm not going to put extra lives in this for like one option. No, I'm not doing that. So you have to deal with the lives that you have. The problem with that idea of like going game over and the game deleting your save file and all that was that I had to save the amount of lives that you picked when you picked that option and translate that into the game and have it so that you can't just go back into the cracked row, change the value of your lives, and then keep playing the game and basically have used this as a way to like change your lives and all that. And this would have meant that the life option would have been the only cracked row option in the whole game, which would have required you to completely restart the game or like restart your save if you wanted to change like values in there. And I also ran into problems where it didn't save properly and I felt like not like dealing with that. So now you can like adjust the lives whenever you want, and basically when you go game over you just get kicked out of the stage and have to do it this way. I'm just realizing that I need to change a tiny thing there, otherwise there might be problems, but I can do that later. So that's something that I did. Again, it's completely optional. It's mostly there like to put it there for people. Again, the same thing with people who would like to play the game with enemies doing more damage to them. Again, if they want to do that, they can do it. It's not like meant for that, but it's the same idea behind like again putting options in there to make the game more forgiving is putting options in there to make the game more punishing, like depending on like what people prefer. Again, the options that are like default are the way that I think the game feels nice to play, but again, if people like differ, they can do whatever they want with that. And like it should work. But yeah, that's basically it. There's like also like at least for the new title screen, I don't know, I did a bunch of like streams this week where you can like see stuff. I don't think that I streamed the title screen, but like the endless attack stages, I streamed a bunch of those. So if you want to watch those as well, there are archives on this channel. And yeah, let's talk about the game feel thing. So there are like two main things of this. So like the reason why I started working on this, like there are two parts to this as well, but I'll talk about it in a bit. The reason why I started working on this was because earlier this week I was like browsing the YouTube channel of the game devs of GDoCExpo, because they have like a bunch of like of their previous talks like that people gave on their channel, and like there was like a bunch of stuff there that was interesting me, just like in general. I can like there are two talks that I would really like to recommend you. The first one is like advanced game feel, which was done by a person called okay, the description only has the first name, Claude. There's probably somewhere like, let me be like very professional and scroll through stuff here. Claude Jerome, who worked on a bunch of stuff, like among other things like Destiny 1 and 2. And like he like had like a lot of like he used like a bunch of stuff like from Destiny 2, like an example of like showing what he meant and like how like to communicate intent and like basically like create feedback for players. And like obviously Destiny is like, or Destiny 2 is a first-person shooter, which much higher budget than I have. But there was something that I like caught that felt like something that I could use, and which was like when he was talking about how like grenades work in Destiny and what their thought process was behind that. And GB Robo has an extra weapon called the Pom Grenade, which is the weapon you get after beating Stave Eminence. And that weapon, and you can see it a bit in the GIF in the first half of it, was kind of not very fun to use because it was a very static weapon. So the Pom Grenade is an apple that you shoot out that explodes, obviously. And in the previous like iteration of it, it had like a very set arc, like it always had the same vertical speed, and it was also basically always traveling the same distance, and like it immediately exploded when it hit the ground, and the explosion didn't damage anyone. So you had to be like, it was basically a weapon where if you were just like a tiny bit off in your placement, you would just completely miss your attack, and it would like, it wasn't very like fun to use like within the game itself. Like there were like 2 or 3 boss fights where it was kind of useful, but it was like mostly like basically a very specific use case thing, and not something that like would feel like interesting to use just in general. Like it has, like the weapons have to be something which theoretically like you could say, oh, I could imagine like just playing a game just using that that weapon, because like you have like enough wiggle room to like to use them that like they're kind of applicable to like any kind of situation. You can use them to get through them, and like again they're like interesting like to play around with and use in some cases. And anyway, that weapon wasn't all that good, and you can see it like again in the first half of that GIF where you can see the previous version where like I basically whiffed 2 shots because like I misjudged the distance, and it just like landed right in front of the boss there, and nothing happens. So what I did was like, and what like Jerome showed, or Claude Jerome showed in his talk was like adding more stuff like to give the player like more, he called it analog control, like more ways to like influence how the thing that you're doing behaves. So instead of the grenade having 1 vertical velocity and just a fairly set horizontal speed, now the Pom Grenade inherits like parts of your vertical speed as well as parts of your horizontal speed. So the way you're moving and the way when you're shooting your projectile in some parts heavily influences how it behaves. Because like the overall like vertical speed, like when you're shooting it from the ground, is fairly low, so you get a very low bounce. But if you're like shooting it after you just jumped, you get a very high arc, which you can use, for example, like to shoot it over barriers, or whatever, or like to hit enemies that are like at a higher elevation level than you are. What I also did was like made it so that the explosion actually damages enemies. So now there's a larger margin of error. So if you slightly misjudge the distance or whatever, you're still dealing damage to the enemy. It's not the highest amount of damage that you can do, because again, this is like a thing. If you're like very good at like aiming this weapon, you can do like even more damage, because the projectile deals more damage than the explosion, but the explosion still deals some damage. So there's still like some kind of trade-off. Also, like the weapon now bounces for a while, and again, like the way the bounce works depends on like your like when you shoot it, basically, like mostly on your vertical speed, not as much on your horizontal speed. Your horizontal speed still matters to some degree, because when you like, for example, when you shoot it at a very like while you're falling down, for example, or when you're standing on like basically standing on the ground, it has like a very like it bounces very low off the ground but gains speed. So like basically starts rolling or starts like skidding across the ground, while when you're like shooting it with a very high arc, it gets a very high bounce and it's much slower. So again, there are like more elements to that players can control. It obviously kind of adds another layer of things that players have to learn and master to some degree, but I think it's a more an interesting thing because you can use it for like some interesting parts. For example, like you could use it to like bounce a grenade off a wall onto an enemy, which like the game isn't built around that, so there isn't really something where you have to use it, but it's more like, and it's part of like what I generally think about like when it comes to adding more options to the game, is it's something that can potentially lead to like the players feeling really cool about doing that instead of like going the easy way, because sometimes you just like doing things because they make you look cooler while you're doing it, and because it looks cooler. It looks cooler to like shoot a grenade and like have it bounce or reflect off a wall above an enemy and knock it on the head and destroy it that way than just shooting him into the face, like regardless of the result being the same, which is the enemy exploding. So that's kind of the idea behind that, and I'm really happy that I did that, and I'm really happy that I watched this talk. I'm going to link it in the description of the video as well, just so that you can maybe watch it. Maybe you can also like find something interesting out of this. Yeah, because it gave me an idea on how to improve this weapon, which I wasn't like very happy with, and now it's kind of fun to use actually, and I'm really happy about like where it is now. And yeah, so that's the one game feel thing that I did. The other thing is like something that you can also see in the stream archive from like Saturday's stream, which was July 31st, where I like towards the end of the stream suddenly got an idea about how to maybe improve the dash maneuver a little bit, and was fiddling around with it. I do like a tiny like math oopsie in there, like in that I like mistake something for something else, which I realized after I stopped, but it's not a big deal. I fixed it now. But so what I did here is I added a this is like the first thing is something I added, I think on the same day I reworked the pomegranate, is like when you start a dash, there's now like your sprite flashes for like I think 3 to 5 frames, I don't know the exact number, and there's also like this sprite is also like slightly stretched horizontally, not the whole sprite, only the flashing sprite, so that it like there's like more of like an emphasis on the taking off part, like that you're like using force and like pushing yourself off the ground. And while I was like doing the stream on Saturday, I suddenly realized, what if I instead, because prior to Saturday, the speed like of your dash was completely set. You pressed the button and you were traveling at a set speed for the whole duration of it. Which is fine. Like, it's not that it was terrible before that, but I thought, why not, like, again, to find ways to emphasize you're pushing yourself off the ground with force. Why not make it so that you start really fast and then slow down? So to, like, again, communicate a bit more weight behind your action. I had to figure out how to make it so that you still like see and feel the the pushing off part, without like completely changing the behavior of the dash itself. So I had to find a good balance between, again, the starting velocity, your final velocity, and the rate of deceleration that happens in between. And that was kind of tricky, actually. Like I fiddled around on the stream a bit, found something that I was happy with, and then fiddled around after that for I think for another 30 minutes or at least. And I think I'm now happy with it. You can see it again in this GIF. Like, this is like right now was the normal, like the previous dash, and this is the new one where there's like a very distinct like snap to like the first few frames, because you're so much quicker and you cover so much more distance that it looks almost like you're teleporting for a short moment. What I find funny is that I was fairly certain that this is how Celeste was doing the dash, and as I was like messing around with stuff, I was like just playing Celeste for a few minutes just to check, and I don't think that Celeste actually does this. So I think like other games do it this way. I don't know which one, but I'm really happy about like how all of this looks, and I'm like, again, very, very glad that I did that. So yeah, game feel, good. Oh yeah, I wanted to call it Rumble now. I have to get used to that. Anyway, and so this is what I did. And now let's talk about what I want to do this week, and it like very much depends on stuff, because I had some ideas yesterday and did some planning. Anyway, so this week, the first one is important. I like earlier today, like this morning, I got my second vaccine shot, which is great because I can now maybe get a haircut soon and not have this mess on my head anymore. Which, it's fine. It looks okay. It's not that I hate myself looking in the mirror. It's more like the maintenance is just a lot, and I don't want to do it. So haircut would be cool. But like whatever I'll do this week heavily depends on like how much side effects I'm going to experience. I have no idea. So that like we'll have to see. Like my oldest brother, he got the same vaccine as like I did, and he was out for like 2 to 3 days because of fever and other stuff. So I'll have to see how I'll do it. And I'm also not like trying to pressure myself into working when I'm not feeling well, because I don't think that it's a good idea. So I have to see how much time I actually have this week. But usually, like last week, I decided to like change my work week a little bit and just say that my days off are Monday and Tuesday and not the weekends, because I think it fits more, like it fits better into the way I go about my business. Usually, the latter part of the week are always the parts where I have more energy, I found. So maybe like shifting the frame a little bit helps me there. And so the next thing, this is something. This is very weird, and it's like very much a let's see if I can actually do this without like overworking myself, or like if this is a good idea or whatever, but I have to like try and see if it works. So I've been thinking about the game's length, and again, since I have a bit of more time, again, like the game is going to come out in like early to mid October. And I like have to like I can't just post GIFs on Twitter every week and sit on this stuff. So, and I was already talking about like finding things like small improvements that I could do in that time. But it's still like I was thinking that maybe like because the game is fairly short, and I don't have the time to add new stages. That's impossible, because like that's too much work, and like balancing this stuff out is too much. But what I thought what might be possible is to extend at least the 4 like main stages in the first half of the game by a third, to like basically make them a third to like twice as long, or like at least increase the length of them. Like right now my idea is to maybe like basically the part where you like right now would usually like fight the boss is the midway point. This might actually make them a bit too long, but I'll have to see. And like on these like, and also introduce like mid-boss fights into these stages, so like to have like basically 2 halves, or like 2/3 of a stage mid-boss fight, or like in between boss fight, then another part of the stage, and then the boss fight itself. I have some nice ideas for like how to frame the mid-boss fights and who you're fighting there, so that's kind of neat. And like for these, and this would also give me a bit more space to like right now, like each stage has like its own stage gimmick and all that, but the problem is very often that I don't have like, I had the problem of always kind of running out of space towards the end of it to actually like do something like fairly complicated with it. Like usually there are like two like segments for each like stage gimmick, and they both like, you have the introductory segment and then you have a slightly advanced segment, and I think that there needs to be a third segment that it's like one step above that, but I always ran out of space for these. So these are like kind of the reasonings, but like for these larger stages to work, or like to have that, I need some more stuff. I need the mid bosses, I need to build those, and I need a few more enemies just to have like a bit more variety in the stages, so that I don't reuse basically the same like enemy types over and over again. Like the game is already kind of like on the verge of being slightly repetitive in that regard, I feel. So having more enemies might help me a bit in that regard. So yeah, that's what I kind of want to try and figure out if I can do that. I have like a schedule here, like of stuff. I made a rough estimation about like how long it would take, like every step would take. Like building the levels, I said would take me roughly 6 days. Building the mid bosses, from like making the sprites and like putting them in the game, making sure that they work, would like cost me 8 days, like 4 days like to make each sprite and 4 days to like program them. Making the enemies would take me 4 days. So that's like this part. This is like 18 days just to make the stage extensions, roughly. So you can say 20 days, because stuff always happens. You sometimes don't have the time to work on stuff where I thought you would have the time. So like, let's just say 20 days. And we are like in early August. So this would take me to like August 21st, 22nd. If you say I work every day on that time, which I won't, so you say, okay, this will take me through the whole month of August. Then I still need to do other stuff. I need to prepare the PR push for when I announce the release date. I need to create the demo for the Steam Next Fest, which is in early October, and I like preferably would like to finish the Endless Attack mode. I can release the Endless Attack mode with the full game, if the Endless Attack mode has at least 20 stages. Right now I'm about 10, so I'm roughly halfway where I at least need to be. Preferably I have more stages than that, because 20 stages, like if you randomly like assort them, isn't all that long. So it's a bit dicey, but it's like at a stage where it has enough variety to at least occupy people for a bit of a time before I add a bit more stages. And basically the way I set out is like, okay, I do like the enemies, like depending on how well things go, I plan like doing the enemies this week, like making the sprites and ideally also put them in the game, like, and then the mid bosses are done. Then I'll build the levels. Then I prepare like the PR push for like the announcement. Then I'll do the demo, and after that I'll like work on the Endless Attack mode and the stages. Ideally all of this would be done by like around like early September. Again, we'll have to see, but that's kind of like the planning for the next, I guess, 6 weeks. I have a hard like date for like when I will stop adding new stuff to the game, which is September 15th. Just to prevent myself from like getting in a situation where I have to really scramble to get everything done in time. I'd much rather have like around a month to just make sure that the game that I have works, instead of like having to scramble and see that I get everything right. And also like if I'm like working on these new stages and I'm realizing that I don't like them for some reason, the good thing here is like I'm going to like basically I'm not touching the stages that I've built. I'm just basically recreating them and extending them. And if I'm realizing that things like the new stages don't work, or like that I don't like the way they flow together, or like they're fiddly to work with, or like whatever, and I find the work frustrating, I'm just going to cancel that part. I'm just going to stop. And like I think it might be smart to just like basically to like test this stuff out on one stage and see how it feels, and then see, okay, is it worth extending this stuff to other stages as well? This might be a good idea while I'm talking about this. I'll probably do that. And again, just to see, okay, how does this feel? And this is like the part where like why I decided that I think it's like worth risking, because if this works, the game gets a bit longer, which is like, again, I'm not opposed to the game being more on the shorter side. It's more like, hey, there's more like stuff to run around and do and all that, and I kind of like that because it's fun to run around in this game, and having more to run around in is nice. There's also like, I get to like basically like put like a different like through the mid-boss fights can like emphasize certain aspects of like specific characters in the game or whatever a bit more, which is why I like the idea again, and it lets me maybe explore some new ideas. I also like some of the new enemy designs I came up with, but again, it very highly depends on like, okay, how much does this actually improve the game? Because like there's a German word for this. I don't think that there's like a good English equivalent. There's a German word that's called verschlimmbessern, which means you're trying to improve something, but in like trying to improve it, you're actually making it worse. And there's like a high risk of like fiddling around on something for so long that you'll end up making a giant mess, because you get so into the weeds about like details and all that. And I want to be careful to not verschlimmbessern GB Rover. So I'll try and like, again, I'm going to test it, going to see how it feels, and if I think that's like that this is worth like a time investment and worth the potential extra stress that this is, because like this like would eat up a lot of the extra time that I have now, and it has to be worth eating up this extra time, because this is extra time I could use to again do more work like this or like this, because like I can spend a day like just tweaking numbers right now to make sure that this flying apple bomb works. When I'm building extra stages, this obviously means that there isn't that much time to make sure that maybe other parts of the game that are maybe still more on the rough side are like getting improved, at least not right now, or that the priority list shifts around. So I have to make sure that this is actually a thing I want to do and a thing that's worth doing. And the problem is, this is only like I can only find this out through testing. I have no idea right now. There's also like the thing like about, okay, why do I want to maybe make the game longer? It's partially because like it's like I don't know really. Like again, there's like this conflict between, first of all, me being concerned about people like not ending up not liking the game because it's short. That's one of the things. The other part is me also again feeling like playing the game is like feels so nice that I think it would be cool to have a bit more of it. That's the other part, and extending the stages that I have for me is the best way of like doing that without like investing like more time into it. It's the same idea behind the endless attack stages and the mode itself, because again I can reuse assets that are already made. And like, okay, I have to make some assets, but I don't have to make whole backgrounds and tile sets and like program entirely new boss fights and like a whole new overworld system and all that. which putting more like entirely new stages in the game would mean. So I think, like, again, I'll see how it goes, and if it's a bad idea, I just stop and use the stages that I have, because most of them are fine and good, and some are even really good. One is okay. Like, one benefit would be I would get to like redo the water level once again, because I still don't like it. Maybe the third time I'll get it right, who knows. But I'll certainly try. But yeah, these are like basically the ideas behind it. But again, it all depends on like how I'll feel this week. But this is also kind of like the planning for the next few weeks. If I have the time, I'll still like maybe do 1 or 2 endless stages like on the weekend. But like for the most part, this will be the work for August and early September probably. And then we'll have to see. And again, like I really want to make sure that I have the time to prepare the things like announcing the release date, announcing like stuff during the Steam Next Fest, being very well prepared for that, and also obviously the release, because this is, again, like, the numbers don't really say that, because like the numbers aren't all that like awesome and great and all that. They're like roughly in the same category as Splinter Zone were, but there are like some things, and also like how the game overall feels. I can't stress enough how much having like a nice main menu, like, just completely for me changed the way I look at this game, and how much like a part of me is like very optimistic about how well the game is going to do. I'm pretty sure like I'm a bit too optimistic about stuff, because it, like, again, right now the numbers do not support any of this. But I want to make sure that I'm able enough to reach as many people as possible the closer I get to like the game getting out, and obviously when the game gets out, because I feel like, unlike Splinter Zone, GDoCExpo will do much better, like under like a high amount of attention. So I really want to try and like do this as best as I can and just see what happens. And again, like, I'm fairly confident that like it might actually do well under these conditions, but for that I need to be prepared and be sure that I can actually do that. And yeah, aside from that, still doing my best and trying to like make this thing as good as I can. And I think I'm like, so far I'm doing a good job at that. But anyway, that's it. That's all I have to say about this. It's another long one, I'm sorry, but like, again, lots of ideas about things, so lots to talk about, and also no script at all, so it's always a bit more rambly. Anyway, if you've watched so long, thank you very much for watching. And if you want to know more, I want to like keep track of the game's development and updates and all that stuff, here's where you can find all these different things. First of all, please wishlist GDoCExpo on Steam, and if you want to like keep track on like news and updates over there, you can also follow the game on Steam. You can also follow my developer account over there. This also exists. These are all things that you could do, but wishlisting on Steam would be like mostly appreciated, to be honest. If you want to like keep track of like everything else that happens around the game and all that, you can follow @Mokograd on Twitter. You can subscribe to the email newsletter. All links are also in the video description as well, so if you're like, you don't have to write anything down or whatever. And you can obviously subscribe to this YouTube channel and maybe follow my Twitch account, which you can like find links to, I think, in the stream archives, just in case you want to like catch me live doing math mistakes. That's the problem when you like stream like and nobody watches. Nobody can correct you on like making like a very big oopsie on like how acceleration and deceleration works, which was like, I was kind of like scratching my head after the stream. I like realizing, what? Like, I did it completely. Anyway, so that's all of that. And yeah, have a nice week, everyone. Stay safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.